Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start on this nice midsummer. Glad in midsummer. I think that's it. I can't say the Finnish version of it, but you know it doesn't matter because Finnish isn't real anyways. There's plenty to talk about today as Bitcoin just played out the short-term upside move that we're looking for yesterday to the 21,200-ish region. And then now the fun action begins yet again on a Friday. And of course, I want to follow up on the big setup for likely the next week to come as it kind of gets pushed back based upon the short-term time frame price action. Other than that, I want to give a massive shout out to Mr. Benjamin Cowan for having me on his channel. That was amazing. Really enjoyed that. If you haven't seen that video and you're interested in more long-term analysis that might be relevant to you, it's on Benjamin Cowan's channel. If you know me, you probably already know him. He's a massive channel and a really good guy as well. Other than that, I think it's time for me to show my Instagram once again. I've been doing little Bitcoin updates on there on the stories feature each and every morning, and then sometimes later in the day as well if necessary, and then also uploading other somewhat unrelated content as well, which you may or may not be interested in, which there is also a link in the description below as well. Other than that, let's just jump into it right now. I want to follow up on yesterday's short-term time frame price analysis. We were looking at a short-term time frame upside move based off of the drives. I think it was 4 drives actually right here of bullish divergence on the 4-hour. And we are also seeing momentum also just turn up as well around that time on the very short-term time frames. But we said, hey, look, at 21,200 or so, that is where our declining highs kind of come in right here. You can see that Bitcoin actually even poked its head a little bit above there, but that's okay, especially on a non-closing basis. But ultimately, if you are going to be looking for another lower high, this would kind of be the place to be looking for. So this is where I'd like to express a bit of caution as the LARP lines kind of play out here. So what essentially are we looking at right now? Well, of course, as long as Bitcoin's below that last local high, which is 21,500, let me actually just double check on this. 21,600 on a 4-hour closing basis, or an hourly closure above about 21,700 or so. If one of those two things does happen, that would obviously reverse the trend, as we do have at least a pair of higher lows right here, and that would be your first higher high. But until then, I do think that it is reasonable to be cautious within this region, and likely the big bounce I still think is probably on track for next week. I do think that's a little more likely in this case. So what am I looking at right here? Well, first things first, funding rates, as you can see on the hourly on the Krown trading application. This has just been hilariously consistent with getting the short-term directions. You can see yesterday it was negative, and that was pointing to an upside bias. Days before that, a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative. There was one iteration last weekend where it didn't work out that well, but that's one iteration out of like the last 2.5 months now. So I'm going to put this on the side of a little bit of short-term bearishness. Now, short-term bearishness, I'm not like calling for new lows or anything like that, but you can see that Bitcoin is wedging itself into what would be a redistributive pattern. Now, personally speaking, I don't think that this is going to play out on an actual breakdown, but first things first, let's actually go through a few other reasons why right now it's a bit more on the cautious side as far as I'm concerned, and then talk about validations and then targets on top of that. So not only do we have those I wouldn't say high funding rates, but positive funding rates at the top side of a short-term time frame range, we do see that 4-hour time frame is going to be creating hidden bearish divergence right here, and this goes all the way up to a 6-hour, I believe. Yep, we will certainly be having it 1, 2, 3 drives going back to the highs from 16th of June. So that'd be this high right here, this high right here, and then potentially this high right here again. And then I'm curious if it goes up to a 12-hour as well, because that'd be rather nasty. And technically, well, no, because we don't really have a local high right here. It's a nothing. It's a Jesus toast. But ultimately, RSI is making higher highs than what we saw even on the last couple highs, which was coming in from 15th of July when Bitcoin was trading at 22,200. So yeah, a little bit of downside pressure here. I do think in the short-term timeframes. But I would not necessarily be calling a full-on breakdown or anything like that. Let's go check out stochastic momentum and see what the pivot points are, because that typically does have good confluence for those breakdown points. And as you can see over here on the 4-hour, we are pivoted at 20,400-ish region, so that's an area to be aware of for right now. 3 hours going to be showing downside below 20,600. That's a little more short-term concerning, as we're very close to that region. Hourly is already down as long as we're below 21,130, so that's almost the resolution point to the upside. And the 6-hour, which I'd also put a lot of weight on, will turn down below 20,500. So a lot of things pivoted in that mid $20,000 region, around 20,500. And the 12-hour will actually turn down below about 20,000 even. So let's put that all into the context of the actual price action right here. And let me get rid of all this for the moment. Oh, by the way, BBWP are rather low on the short-term time frame, so probably are looking at least a 4-hour move today. But in this case right here, what are we essentially looking at? Well, in the very short-term time frames, where to start to confirm this as your next local high, thus a lower high, thus confirming all of those drives of hidden bearish divergence up to a 6-hour and stochastic momentum oscillator is turning down. Well, the obvious area, like the no questions asked area, is a little bit further away, 20,400 basically on an hourly closure. If I was going to use this on perhaps a 4 hour, however, I do think that could be moved up to a closure below about 20,500 or so, as we did see a few pivots within that region as well. This is for CME, by the way, but spot price action, pretty much in lockstep with CME at this point. Anyways, if and when that does happen, I would be looking for something like this, of which we're kind of already getting this. And Bitcoin very likely comes back down somewhere around the bottom side of the range. I'll put in a nice little blue box of peace and prosperity down here. And that's the big question mark. So I do think, based off of what we're going to discuss in a second here, that it would be unlikely, let's say, for Bitcoin to break down below this region first before trying for a higher term time frame bounce, probably next week. But hey, if I'm wrong on that, which it could very well be, obviously, and you do see a closure specifically below the lows of, I think this was, this week, which is 19,500, it looks like, on even a 4 hour time frame, then yes, we would actually have a descending triangle. And that is one of the few patterns that I actually think works. It's not that I think it works, like the data clearly shows that it fucking works. And this would have an implied target, essentially a measured move all the way down to about $18,000. At which point I'd be looking for probably a bounce there and then come back to it after that. But here's the thing. I do think that it's a little bit less likely for Bitcoin to break down. We might get some more wick fishing to the downside over the weekend, but ultimately the big chart that I want to bring up is, again, this chart over here, the one chart to kind of rule them all right now, the mean reversion chart after major massive volatility expansion. So I won't go through the full explanation on this. If you're interested in that, check out the Sunday's video on long-term time frame analysis, as it'll go over that in depth. And I'll probably do it again this weekend as well. But basically the signal that I'm now looking for based off of this, which is going to very likely derive the next bounce, is first and foremost, we are looking at extremes on daily BBWP, on specifically CME. So BBWP is a volatility indicator. It measures the dispersion of returns. And basically what we're seeing now is we're seeing extremes. And typically after we see extremes from a long lull and in very extreme lows, there is a play to be made, similar to what we had back here is a great example in May, that is a bit of a reversion after that full-on expansion. So the full-on expansion is like this move here, that's it. After that, there's a bit of a consolidation as volatility contracts, and I've gone ahead and tested all of the iterations over the past 2.5, I think maybe even 3 years now, and I've found that on the contraction phases, which we'll talk about how to confirm that in a second, we've seen an average reversion of about 15.24%, done over the course of an average of 11.5 days, and the stochastic momentum also has gone in the correct direction 82% of the time. So in this case right here, the signal is officially given once the daily BWP is below the moving average, has a negative slope, and then the moving average also has a negative slope as well. So in this case over here, what are we looking at? We're actually getting very mature within this. Now we were at, or not we, but the daily BBWP was at extremes here for the longest time that we've actually seen, maybe actually ever. Oh yeah, literally ever. Holy shit, that's kind of crazy. Okay, some of these are comparable. March 2020, very comparable. November and December 2018, very comparable. This is what we do see on extremes, which is kind of a good sign for the long term. I do still think that Bitcoin is closer to a bottom than not, whether it goes down to maybe like 15 or 16,000 or grinds out this area for the next like 3 to 4 to 5 months. I think it's still best case scenario, but ultimately, we are starting to see the BBWP on the daily trend down a little bit here. It's for the first time in the last week let go of 100 percentile, and it's now down at 99.21. So it's getting there, and the moving average is also moving down as well, and it's actually below the moving average as well here. But I would not say this is a full-on signal just yet. I want to see some actual visible divergence between the two before I look at that. Anyways, it's going to completely depend upon when we actually get that, which theoretically probably happens Monday, Tuesday, assuming that the weekend plays ball, but likely Monday, Tuesday, which in the interim could do very well. Hey, God damn it. Don't do that, you fuck. How dare you? You stupid trading view. Sorry, just kidding. I am autistically raging right now, but maybe we get something like that and then a bit of a bounce, a bit of a wick fish to the downside. and then the fun times for an actual bounce. But it completely depends upon where that signal really starts to initiate from, which I imagine still Monday, Tuesday, more reasonable, maybe even Wednesday, as things have gotten kind of pushed back from what I was postulating earlier. So fair enough in that. Anyways, in this case, if we were to play around with numbers and say that Bitcoin is generally around the same region here, probably looking at least 15%, because, this is like an extreme right here. So it's probably going to be more than that, to be fair. That likely puts Bitcoin around the top side of the range highs, which is $23,500. So I do think that we're going to see that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, something like that, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But here's also the thing, and I forgot to do this one actually, but I do have it over here, I believe. Let me just double check. Okay, yes, here we go. And then what I've also done, hey, I haven't done it. Fucking bastard. I've done it over here. Yes, there we go. What I've also done is I've analyzed when these daily stochastic momentum oscillator on CME gets down to this green horizontal bar here, which has only happened a few times in history, really. Or sorry, actually, probably more than that. Okay, it's happened about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. There has been a pretty interesting play after that as well. And the historical average bounce from those levels has been about just over 30%, or just under 31%, actually, better said. And then the days until the next high has been about 14.29. So kind of putting these 2 and 2 together, I do think that we're probably going to see on the upper end of that average that we postulated earlier. And again, it completely depends upon where we take that from. If it happens from the bottom side of the range, or even around 18,000, obviously that's not going to be as impressive of a move as if it happens from here. Still brings you up to about range highs though. If we just come down to the bottom side of the range for CME and play it like a 30% move, that puts Bitcoin around $25,000. So I do think that we're going to see something, between 23 to 25, in July, probably mid end of July, something like that. I also strongly believe that rally will fail. That rally will very likely fail, but we'll address that once it becomes relevant, as this video is already getting a little bit too long. So I'm going to sign it off with that right there. There's one other last shill that I forgot, damn it. But it was about Bybit actually. They made us an offer that I can't refuse actually. Basically 0% on maker fees, meaning that if you put in a limit order, then you don't pay any trading fees on that if you use the link in the description below. And then also I'll have a team for the what the fuck is the I'm reading off a script right now. The World Series of Trading. That's it. Man, I'm not doing a good job at this. I'm gonna get fucking fired. Anyways, it's all good, man. It's all fucking good. We'll do something for that. Understand that that's not real trading in my opinion. At the end of the day, I always want to be at least true to myself in the sense that, hey, when it comes to trading, which yes, you can do on Bybit or any exchange for that matter, the only thing that matters is simply backtesting your strategy, having these statistics to support that strategy, and then if they are acceptable to you, then perhaps even applying that strategy as well. No exchange, no amount of low fees or anything like that is going to make you a good trader, but having that set up there will. And yes, and then it's very, very nice if you have lower fees on top of that. But I think that's a good place to leave off on this video. I want to be wishing you well yet again. Take care. Maybe some updates on Instagram later. And with that said, see you hopefully soon.